Welcome to the NNJR Trackside Classroom Series. My name's Bill Gilbert. I'll be leading us through today a turn-by-turn of Lightning on behalf of the NNJR Chief Instructors. NJMP Lightning, as I'm sure you know if you're watching this, is one of two tracks at New Jersey Motorsports Park. It's the shorter one and a favorite of many. So with that said, let's dive in. The first thing, of course, is that while we're sharing here our best advice about the way to drive Lightning, uh, you do so at your own risk. We're trying to make it as safe as possible, and we've included in this updated turn-by-turn some statistics, well, some recommendations rather, based on statistics of recent both incidents and offs where people have spun or gone off track. But let's just dive right in. Here's the track. I'm going to start by just highlighting the passing zones. On the front straight, which you see at the top here, passing is always on the right. I know sometimes we've seen people try to pass on the left coming out of the light bulb. Very bad idea. All passing on the right. Same between 1 and 2, all passing on the right. Except for red and black, there is no passing between 2 and 5. Between 5 and 7, passing is generally on the left. An early pass on the right is okay, especially in the upper groups, but generally I recommend everybody pass on the left. And between 7 and the light bulb, you can pass early on the left, later on the right, since the line does cross the track there. If you're a student driver, your instructor will help you with this. If you're not a student driver and you have any questions at all about the passing zones, be sure to ask in the drivers' meeting and clarify. Now, here's the track map that's on the website that you can print out for your notes. Be sure to print several copies of this one so you can make notes about about your reference points and so on. There's a in-car lap on the website, and I encourage you to look at that as well. I will have photos here from stills from that video. So let's dive right in, starting with turn 1 at the end of the front straight. As you probably know, this is an uphill turn. It's relatively fast, but because of the hill, it's fairly tricky. So the key things here are the turn-in is approximately brake marker 0. If you look, well, this photo doesn't show the, some of the track markings on the left, but that's a good way to think about where it is. It's generally, the turn-in is generally just after the sharp part of the turn, the uphill starts. In other words, as soon as the track rises in the straight section is a good reference for about where the turn-in is. Because of the uphill, that turn-in is slightly earlier than normal, but like all corners, an early turn-in here can be dangerous. And we can brake maybe a little bit later than normal, but we still have to get our turning done early because of the hill. The hill is right where we'd like to get on power, and as a result, we have to be straight. If we get on a lot of power before we get straight, we're going to be off track, exiting. And that track out is blind, and therefore, when you're first learning the track, it's very important to figure out your line before you try to go fast here. And this corner can be dangerous. It's been known to eat cars, and so in the way that happens is someone gets in too fast or early, and tries to keep it on track. And I guarantee that if you try to keep it on track, you'll hit the inside tire wall. So there's acres and acres of space track left here. So if you're not sure that you can make the corner, drive it off into the dirt and grass. No harm, no foul at that point. Much better than hitting the inside tire wall. But if we follow the directions here and make learn the line before we try to go fast, there's no reason to be going off track or having to do any kind of corrective action. So here you can see in the photo the not only the brake markers, but you can see kind of where the track begins to rise here, which is approximately where the turn-in is. This is just after the turn-in, and there is a curb here, and a lot of people will run on the curb, especially the lower part. If you get on the upper part, that will upset many cars. So I don't recommend that for most drivers, but we certainly do want to be close to it. But again, we don't want to be early because we'll run right out of track. Here you can see that even when we're past the apex, we have no visual for track out. So that's why this has to become memorized. We have to have the mental picture of track out long before we try to do anything fast here. We have to get the muscle memory of the line nailed on this corner. Very, very important. And of course, there's a flag station that you see on the right here that, by the way, can also be seen halfway down the front straight. So it's an important flag station to check out as you're going by the flag station on the front. Be sure to look and glance at this flag station as well. So here now we see track out. There is curbing, which I don't recommend you use that all the time. Use that for insurance, which you might need if you come through particularly fast. But I generally don't recommend it. I like to use it for insurance. You can see that people have driven off here, and again, that is the smart thing to do. But this tire wall is the one I mentioned that will eat your car if you try to keep it on track here, or God forbid, you may even hit the steel Armco here. We hope no one does that. So that's turn one. The next section of the track is a connected series of corners, 2, 3, and 4. So we'll talk about those pretty much connected. And the reason is that the arc through 2 and 3 is one arc. You can essentially think of it as one corner if you wish. And it's quite fast. And it leads to 4, which is slower. So if we come through 2 and 3, quickly, which we can, we have to slow down for 4. So that's at the same time, by the way, we want to be able to exit 4 well, because there is a short straight after 4. Whoops, as you can see just below the circle here on the track map. So it's also important, though, to recognize that sometimes if we get through 2 and 3 really well, we may feel like we've compromised our entrance to 4 a bit. And so I'm going to talk about that when we get to turn 4. So here's turn 2, big sweeping right-hand turn. It does require, if you have a quick car, a little bit of brake coming in, but less than one might think, because our objective again is to carry speed, through 2 and into 3. You can think of it as lengthening that straight between turns 1 and 2. And to make this work in most cars, we're going to apex turn 2 4 feet plus or minus. Some people might even say a car width off of the curb in 2. For most people, the apex of 2 is not in on the curbing. And of course, we're going to exit track left, but that point, if you will, in this one big arc is actually the turn in for 3, not that we should have to make anything more than a very minor adjustment at that point. And if we do it well, we may not have to do any adjustment of the steering at the exit of 2 and entering 3. And I'll point this out in a minute, but we want to finish turn 3 kind of at the apex of 3 on the curb. And again, I'll point that out. So here's the entrance to 2, big sweeping turn to the right, as I said. You can almost see in the track surface here a black line where people have driven, and you'll notice it is not in on the apex curb on 2. Now the car, the picture here is a little misleading. It looks like the car is in closer to the apex of 2 than it should be, and perhaps it is in this photo. So again, we want to be, here you see the cone where the apex, we want to be kind of out in here 4, 5, 6 feet off. And you'll want to adjust exactly how far off so that you have a big arc that you're comfortable with in your car and your style of driving. Now, 3 is just a continuation, as I said, because what I'm showing on the slide here as the turn-in for 3 is the exit of 2. And we're going to want to apex right on this curb, on the beginning part of this curb. This is a very friendly curb, easy to drive on, does not upset the car at all. And we want to be all the way in on this and apex it fairly early in the first part of this curb. So here we're approaching, turn 3, almost to the outside of the track. Kind of the turn in is up here. And now you see that friendly curb that I mentioned. And the cone here is further around than I think it needs to be. Although in a minute, I'll point out there are 2 possible lines here. And so if you're taking one of the 2 lines, you may want to apex this a little bit later. So if you apex that a little bit later and stay track right, like I've shown with the red line here, this will make turn 4 easier. And it's kind of the classic way one would want to drive turn 4. However, if we get through turns 2 and 3 quickly, it's very hard to get the car back to the right-hand half of the track here. And so if you're a student driver, you may want to use this line. It makes turn 4 somewhat easier. On the other hand, if you're an experienced driver and you want to carry speed through 3 and you find yourself track left, that's the alternative line here. And so that's the 2 options I have. In the case of the tight line, if you will, we're aiming in, we're not worrying about trying to be track right. We're just letting the momentum of the car carry us, and we'll end up somewhere in this range. And it's not as difficult as it might seem, because there is pretty good grip at the apex of 4 and a little bit of favorable camber there to help us. Now, I have to point out that if we do carry speed through here, many cars, may require a light brake to slow down a bit and to help with the turn-in. Many people feel that's not necessary. Others feel it is. Again, something you'll want to experience with. But regardless of which line you use to enter turn 4, we want to use all of the track out because we're trying to accelerate onto the straight. So now here, we're approaching turn 4 kind of on the wide line. The apex is a little hard to see, but it's right around here. Um, Here's the apex. The turn 4 apex curb is very friendly. Again, we can run right up on it, and and it won't upset the car at all. So we want to use that curb to maximize the corner, and the track out curb is also fairly friendly, but you see a lot of people abusing it there by the amount of dirt that you see kicked up. It This is a relatively safe section of the track, but it is not uncommon to overcook turn 4. And there is space out here, but there is also a tire wall. And so it's not, if you have a powerful car, especially, you want to be careful here. Or if you get really early into 4 or really too fast, then, be prepared to bail out and drive it into the grass and not spin it into the grass and hit this wall over here. Okay, so next, turn 5. Turn 5 is a very steep uphill corner, and that uphill has a lot of impact on how we drive the corner. And if we get going too fast here too soon, it can cause issues. So, and just like turn 1, we can't see that apex until we're well into the corner, and so the entrance here and getting the turning done going up the hill is very important. Even when we're coming down the hill, yes, we want to feed a lot of power on, and there is room, but we have to be careful, again, especially if you have a powerful car or you get on the power early. Nail the line here because it is not natural. The track kind of comes back. The track doesn't unfold the way we would like. It makes it much more difficult than we might like. And in the red here, I've highlighted that many people have gone off here, and really there's no reason for that. It's simply people either not nailing the line or getting on the power too soon. And God forbid if you combine those two. And while we haven't had a lot of incidents of people hitting things here, it is possible. And so we want to be careful. So here we are approaching turn 5. And as we exit turn 4, we can see this curbing right more or less in front of us. If I go back 2 slides, this picture doesn't show it as well as your eyes will pick it up, but that curbing that enters that sets up turn 5 is right there, right straight in front of us. So now a common mistake is to drive from turn 4 right at this cone, and we don't want to do that. We want to drive at the beginning of this curb or even kind of where the dirt is here so that we can get the car straight along and make a little bit of our turning effort happen before we get to the actual turn in, which is this last red stripe in the curbing here. And I should point out that there are many places on Lightning where we want to use, as a permanent reference, a red or a white stripe rather than using the cone. Obviously, they don't move, and the cone can and does move from time to time. So again, we're trying to line up on the left here. As we turn in, we're turning into the hill, as you can see here, and we cannot see the apex. There is a cone at the apex. We can't even see that at this point. So, we want to be getting the car turned and all the way track right. The apex is just over the hill here. There's a nice friendly curb there right here. we want to put the right front tire right on this curb. Um, Again, friendly curb, we want to be all the way in because as you're going to see, we want to every inch we can get to the right here because we run out of room on the left. As we head down the hill, we can't see it very well here, but the road's coming back. I mean, the track out is out here. It's quite a ways down, which we need because we're going to accelerate hard coming down the hill. But nonetheless, if we get on too much power too soon, we're going to run out of real estate here. And if that does happen, just drive it off. There's acres and acres of space here. And if you have to drive it off, drive it off. Now, as you can see, this straightaway is not really straight. It curves here. That's called turn 6, and basically a kink, although we do have to drive it carefully. And if we are giving passes, if we're at this position where the car is in this photo, we can give a pass on the right if there's a quick car behind, but only if there's a quick car behind because we're moving pretty fast here. And the line is we're going to track out and then we're going to come back, track right. And so most passes are going to happen at that point on the left. So, whoops, what happened here? So that's track out. So I'm not going to talk about turn 6, but again, it is important to mind your line there, if you're giving or taking a pass. Now, turn 7, probably the most challenging corner on the track for most drivers, and that's because they overdrive it. As you can see here, it's from the top, looks like a fairly classic 90-degree left-hand turn. What you can't see in the overhead view is that this is downhill and that the turn, especially in this area where all the dirt is, the asphalt there is off camber. And so while it may look straightforward, it is anything but. And we have to think about that in terms of how we drive it. So this corner has more incidents and more offs than any other corner on the track. So not only is it challenging, it's dangerous. And therefore, it's important to drive it properly. I really think for almost any driver of any ability, this is really a slow in, fast out corner, or we should think about it that way and drive it that way. The mistake most drivers make is to brake too late and to try to carry too much brake into the corner. And yes, the brake markers are after the bridge, but in most cars, we need to be on the brakes at or most likely before the bridge. Now, interestingly, the apex is earlier than you might think on this corner, and that has to do with the camber that I mentioned before. There is somewhat favorable, or at least not negative, camber early, right near that early apex, but the track goes off camber right after that. So that's another reason we want to slow down more than you might think, because we want to set up that early apex. And if we do that, we can start to feed power on fairly early. Big if we're on the correct line. Most people, well, many people are not on the correct line here, especially if you're new to Lightning. So the nice thing is the turn-in reference here is the end of the curb, nice and easy to see. And the apex is also roughly the second red stripe, assuming the track hasn't added some curb there like they did a couple years ago. And we can even, if we get it correct here, we can even turn in a touch more as we approach the apex to help make sure we're all the way in. And by the way, it's a friendly apex curb. We can run right on it. So here we are approaching turn 7. As I said, we want to be braking by the time we get to the bridge, if not before, because I don't care how good your brakes are. We're carrying a lot of speed here, and we need to slow down a lot. And the braking zone is downhill. the road starts going downhill even more about at the bridge. You can see a little bit that the road goes downhill, but now you see the brake markers as we come under the bridge. And here you can see now that curbing at track right, the end of that curbing is our turn-in point. So yes, there's a cone there, but we don't need it. That's our turn-in point. And again, we want to do 98% of our braking in a straight line here because we want to get slowed down so that the car will turn and get into the apex. And here you can see that curbing, again, it's friendly, roughly the second red stripe, but experiment a bit. Make sure you find a mark that works for you as the apex here. But make sure you get all the way in. Many drivers are not all the way in tight on this apex, so make sure you get in. And here you see the track out, and it's probably hard to tell from the photo, but this is off camber for sure here. And so this is, and it's very, very easy to run out of track. If you get on too much power too soon, and especially if you have a powerful car and you get on too much power, you may well buy, a tire wall. So again, very important corner to be careful with. Even if you don't buy a tire wall, you may end up spinning into the dirt and be lucky and miss it. But in any case, again, slow in, fast out. Now, a signature of Lightning is the light bulb or bowl. There are two possible lines here. I've shown what I call the inside line, and there is a second line that I'll talk about in a minute. That inside one I'm going to show in the photo in a minute. We aim at the gap in the wall and brake along the right side of the track, entering turn 9. And I describe it as tossing the car into the banking. In other words, let the momentum carry the car as much as possible into the banking, no more than halfway up, maybe 2/3, but we're not going a long ways up. And we're going to look for the apex, which is a culvert. We can see the culvert inside the track long before we can see the apex curb or cone. The alternative line, sometimes some people refer to it as the Miata line, we enter closer to track left. So instead of in this photo being to the right, we would be all the way left over here. And in that case, we're going to enter the bowl much higher, and we're going to make one big arc, slightly decreasing. You can think of this as a single apex version of driving the light bulb, where the inside line is, if you will, a double apex version. Feel free to try both. Some drivers like one versus the other. I personally like the inside line, but like I said, try both and see what works for you and your car. So here's the inside line, and I want you to notice two things in this photo. First, the gap in the wall here. That makes a perfect visual as we're coming through turn 8 and headed toward the light bulb. And the second thing I want you to notice is this white line on the right here. This is roughly straight. The track is kind of turning here, but this little straight section is a perfect place to brake. And it, again, depends on how fast your car is. If you have a powerful car, you're going to have to brake more than if you don't, but certainly some brake is required here in almost any car. If you have a low-powered car, it's going to be very little brake because the banking is going to scrub off a lot of speed in any car. But this is our braking zone. and it's a nice, easy reference. And when you're driving, it's easy to see this kind of little straight section here where we can brake. Now, as soon as we're braking, or even perhaps before, we're going to want to look around to the right uh, for that apex. And the photo doesn't go around far enough for us to really see where it is, but it's kind of down past, off the edge of the photo here is where we want to get our eyes as soon as we're up into the banking here. So, once we're into kind of the middle of the banking, our eyes should be looking all the way around. We can be managing the speed of the car with the gas pedal. If we've come in really fast, we're just going to want to stay off the gas and let the car turn a bit and scrub off a little bit of speed. And because we really can't accelerate until we get much further around in this photo. Now we're a little bit further around, and while it's hard to see in this photo, I've circled where the culvert is and where the apex is. And again, even at the point we are in this photo, we really can't do much with the gas other than maintain our speed. If we've slowed down too much, okay, let's feed in some gas. But if we feed in too much, we won't make the apex. So again, we're going to modulate our speed with the gas here, but we're not accelerating in order to exit the corner yet. I guess I don't have a photo here, in between these two, but as we begin to get into this part of the track here, we can actually then see the apex curb, which is down in here. And as soon as we see it, we can begin to accelerate, not foot on the floor, but squeezing a little bit. And as we approach the apex curb, assuming we're on the right line, now we can begin to feed in more gas and more gas. And there is a lot of room all the way out to track out here, and we can carry a lot of speed. And so by the time we get to track out, we're going to be going pretty fast if we've done this properly, which means we can carry a lot of speed onto the front straight. But some cautions. See, as some cautions as we head onto the front straight. The front straight comes back as we come over the hill, as you can see here. And that wouldn't be so bad as, except that we're now in a passing zone. And if we're going to give a pass on the right, we need to stay track left far enough to let the car go by. And we've had more than one car go off track here because of not leaving enough room or leaving too much room and driving off. We've also had car-to-car incidents here where people aren't paying enough attention. So this exit and the entrance onto the front straight here is really, really important to pay a lot of attention. And it is fast, it's fun, but very, very important. So some reminders about Lightning. If you run wide, drive off. Turn 1, turn 7 especially, turn 5 too. But if we try to keep the car on track, we're going to buy a tire wall. Turn 5 deserves a lot of respect. That hill, can get the car upset. Turn 7 is challenging to most drivers. Slow in, fast out. Don't overdrive it. Don't be like most drivers and overdrive it. I didn't mention that whole, complex as we're leading onto the front straight also has pit in over the top of the hill. So there are lots of hazards, if you will, there that need to be given great respect. And so I don't care whether you're giving a pass or taking a pass coming onto the front straight, please be extra cautious there we don't need any more incidents at that part of the track because obviously we're going very fast, and if something bad happens, the consequences could be serious. So, with all that said, Lightning's a a great track. We all love driving it, and I hope you have a lot of fun at Lightning. And I look forward to seeing you there. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to stop and ask me or any of the chief instructors, and or send me an email, gilbert4@rcn.com. Again, look forward to seeing you at Lightning. Have a great day.